Modi's magic versus Rahul's logic. Welcome, Namaskaram, Vanakkam. I would like to begin our time together by recalling a very significant moment which also became a haunting image in the Parliament of India a few years ago. The occasion was that of Rahul Gandhi making his maiden speech in the Parliament. Till then, he was ridiculed as a person of no ability, particularly incapable of articulating his ideas, and he always suffered in contrast to Sri Narendra Modi, who is justly hailed as one of the greatest orators in the political history of India since independence. So when Rahul got up to speak, there was widespread anxiety and an equal measure of cynicism as to what this green politician would say and how he would fare in the presence, rather intimidating presence of a Narendra Modi who was sitting there. Exceeding the expectations and laying to rest the anxieties of everyone, Rahul Gandhi made a speech which, and I'm not exaggerating, literally rattled the BJP camp, including the Prime Minister. And I was watching him because the camera was more often focusing on his face, and he stood there not realizing what had hit him. Anyway, I don't want to go into the contents of that remarkable speech, which unveiled the arrival or announced the arrival of a significant political presence in India, that of Rahul Gandhi. But what happened thereafter was that, quite contrary to practice and custom, Rahul walked across the aisle and went and hugged Sri Narendra Modi. Now, that was the moment of all moments for me and for millions of people. And perhaps that was the one thing that took Sri Narendra Modi entirely by surprise. So I think what he did by that very spontaneous gesture, I don't know if he did it deliberately or was it done spontaneously in the spur of the moment. What he did through that gesture, what he achieved through that gesture, is a complete demolition of this false logic of pitting him against Narendra Modi or Narendra Modi against him to his detriment. He surpassed that logic through a single gesture of hugging the presumed adversary. I really don't think that Rahul considers Sri Narendra Modi as his personal adversary, to the extent that I know him. His native sweetness and gentleness will not allow him to harbor hard-hearted, long-standing animosity towards anyone. Of that, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so that's the context that I have in mind in inviting you into a time of reflection, which is a very strange and perhaps unheard of title. Modi's magic versus Rahul's logic. You've heard a lot about the Modi magic, but I assure you have not heard a single word about the Rahul logic. So, don't be surprised if what you are going to hear or receive through the rest of this video is the kind of stuff that you're quite unlikely to receive from any other source. I don't say this as a matter of patting myself on the back. I'm saying this only to flag the reality of an excessive asymmetry, artificially conjured up and deliberately sustained between these two characters, one in the seat of power and the other uh, in the domain of the opposition. So let's get started. Now, quite clearly, the uh, Modi magic has been drummed up very deliberately, assiduously, elaborately, with the help of an assortment of resources, strategies, um, um, media managed programs, um, events managed to that purpose, and many more. I'm not therefore implying that Modi as a person lacks personal charisma. That's not what I intend at all. But I do want to emphasize that his personal charisma does not explain the Modi magic in its totality. So, the gulf between the personal charisma of Sri Narendra Modi and the magic of Narendra Modi, that intervening space is what I'm trying to explain as the outcome of using a very carefully and elaborately planned, designed play of an assortment of strategies and resources. Paucity of time will not allow me to go and examine all of them threadbare. It would be very rewarding to do that, but time doesn't allow me to do that. So, the reality of the Modi magic, which has been referred to a zillion times in the last 10 years, is something that's given. It is there. I don't think any Indian is beyond its reach. It sort of hits us wherever we turn. It's a very, very widely spread, keenly felt reality. So I don't have to say anything more about it. Perhaps I have to say something about the Rahul logic. Now, most people would assume that if there is a contest between magic and logic, magic will win. Particularly in the context of democracy where the ordinary people are involved. Now, that apprehension stems from a certain prejudice. The prejudice of the so called educated, privileged, social, economic ruling elite. Say the middle class upwards, the privileged sections of the society, that the ordinary people, the masses in this country, the common man, the masses in this country are inferior and incapable of appreciating anything which makes an intellectual demand. They're not in a position to understand the realities that surround them, and therefore it's very easy to influence them by subjecting them to the kind of propaganda that's been at work in this country, particularly in the recent years. There's a certain cynicism that plays in the background of the kind of political arrogance that's been showcased in India. The arrogance that was cut down to size in the 2024 elections. So, one of the things I really want to emphasize now is that we can no longer harbor this prejudice against the common man in India. In fact, a very, very encouraging, hope sustaining revelation in the 2024 election is that the common man is a lot wiser than we had given him credit for, and that he is capable of approaching life and reality logically. As a matter of fact, if you give the common man a chance, he will prefer logic to magic. Now, therefore, I am envisaging the contents of this video, whether you believe it or not, keeping in mind the thousands of people who are working their fingers to their bones in sustaining the public image of Sri Narendra Modi, insofar as Sri Narendra Modi is the greatest asset of the BJP. It is quite natural, therefore, that the heavy investment will be made on not only sustaining his image but of enlarging it to the extent it can be. So, if they are sincere about their work, and I wish them well, they would pay heed to the message that is writ large over the outcome of the elections this time. There is a limit to the Modi magic. Now, leave the word name Modi out of it. Surely, there is a limit to magic. I would go to the extent of saying that the age of magic is over. When an age is over and another is begun, there will always be a hangover. That hangover could remain for quite some time. But that doesn't mean that that will function as the clinging or decisive force. So, if you counterpoint, if you contrast magic with logic, we are in this age of logic, not of magic. But unfortunately, the people who are trying to showcase Modi as a man of magic, and therefore thinking only in that direction, which is an antiquated direction, which can really survive only at the level of superstition, irrationality, deceit, and the creation and sustenance of illusions, which is an exercise which is seriously limited no matter how hugely, humongously, and elaborately it is undertaken. Its days are numbered, believe you me. If you have any historical sense, all Modi facts. I have absolutely no negative feeling towards Sri Narendra Modi. In fact, I've had the opportunity to interact with him, and one to one, and I hold him in affection. This is the truth of my heart. But I'm talking about what's going on in the public space of India and the utterly fallacious, false, and laughable premises on which this gigantic effort is established, which is now beginning to be counterproductive, and therefore, if anyone really cares for Sri Narendra Modi in the Parivar camp, in the BJP camp, I'm sure that person or those persons will take what I'm going to say seriously. Now, maybe if time so demands, I may turn the substance I have in mind into two videos, but let's proceed. So, the first thing we have to register in our mind is that the age of magic is over, and therefore, even if the charisma of magic is embodied in a person, and that person has huge pan Indian appeal, and that appeal is then amplified and intensified through a variety of strategies, plans, interventions, investments, so on and so forth. There is a limit to which this can be pushed, and if my analysis is right, that limit is already reached. So we have reached the dead end of magic. Now, for a moment, look at Rahul. Rahul is a study in contrast, no doubt about it. He is not a replica of Sri Narendra Modi. But tell me, is there any law that somebody who has a foothold in politics, in Indian politics, has to be like Sri Narendra Modi? Why can't that person be as different to Narendra Modi as may be imagined? Is difference a demerit, or is it a sign of significance? If I try to be Sri Narendra Modi, and I say this because I have been called Christian Narendra Modi at least for the last 30 years, if I try to be like Narendra Modi, I'll only be a second-class Narendra Modi, an inferior photocopy of Narendra Modi, which I don't want to be. I would rather be an authentic Valsand who is nowhere near Narendra Modi in rank and distinction and mass appeal and power brokering, so on and so forth. I'd rather be an authentic person who is so small in the size and scope of his life and activities, as is the case with me, than being an inferior carbon copy of Sri Narendra Modi with a huge canvas to spread myself around. In my mind, there is no doubt at all that the second option, that is of being an inferior copy of Sri Narendra Modi, is repugnant. Not because I dislike Narendra Modi, but because I dislike being anybody's carbon copy. I cherish my authenticity above all else in this world. So, first of all, let's settle this. That Rahul Gandhi, differing from Sri Narendra Modi practically in every respect, is part of the logic of life. So, I'm effecting a gradual shift from magic to logic. And therefore, I would say, not because I care for Rahul Gandhi, I'm just thinking rationally, thinking objectively. It is to Rahul Gandhi's credit, as time will increasingly prove, that he is dramatically different to Sri Narendra Modi. Okay. Now, therefore, I'm going to try and analyze this difference or this contrast, if you like, which is not merely an academic exercise, but an attempt to come to terms with or come to understand, or at least to develop a perspective on this important contrast, which is not of Rahul's making, a contrast that is thrust upon him, a contrast deliberately meant to show him in a poor light. Since that contrast does exist and the contrast is created deliberately by the Modi camp, they cannot in good conscience object to that contrast being now reflected upon by a third party who is completely politically neutral. So, therefore, if you are like me and you are individuals of political neutrality but not political indifference, who are therefore keenly interested in understanding the realities as they are of Indian public life and the political culture of India and the political future of India, then what I'm going to share with you will be of significant interest to you. So, shall we get started? Okay. So, how do we contrast, how do we understand the Modi magic in contrast to or in juxtaposition to the Rahul logic? Okay. So far, what I have said is only by way of fixing the context, which I thought was necessary. And I'm sure that whatever we have covered so far by way of creating the framework for our collective thinking and seeking now will help you in understanding what's going to be shared more readily. Okay. The first logic, now the first point of contrast between these two personalities, just think of these two, Modi magic, or should I say Modi magic and Rahul logic, the contrast between the two, right? I think one way of understanding this, and I'm going to share with you 5 different ways. Of that, the first way of seeing this contrast is that the Modi magic depends very heavily on impressive spectacles. Everything is a spectacle. Now, that spectacle includes sounds, colors, images, and the elaborate logic of distance. Now, that's of course a philosophical category. That is to say, or let me bring it down to the level of home truths. We are familiar with that old dictum, familiarity breeds contempt. So, if someone comes closer and closer to you, you will lose the sense of magic or mystery about him. And gradually, you will begin to take him for granted. This is something that Sri Narendra Modi is very careful about, and why not? He has every right to do so. So, I'm certainly not complaining. I'm only making certain observations. So, now when you enter a theatre, there is a stage there, you as a member of the audience, you sit at a distance from the stage and the spectacle, right? Now, suppose you are seated on the stage and the actors have to move around you. On the stage are seated, say, 50, 60 members of the audience, spectators. And the actors have to sort of find their space and make their movements among you. Now, the play will not work. The show will lose its sheen. So, that illustrates the role that distance plays in magic. Now, for example, imagine a magician who is entertaining you with his tricks. Now, he cannot function if you are standing, rubbing shoulders with him. His show will completely stop. There will be no magic left. In other words, magic is incompatible with proximity, incompatible with being together. So, when you talk about the Modi magic, if you have any common sense, you must understand that what it means in practical terms is that it is a magic which is derived from the logic of distance. Don't come near me. Now, if you understand what I am saying now, you will understand the utter contradiction and the dishonesty, the deviousness of Modi saying, my people, my 140 crore people. It's only at the level of sounds. Modi will not identify himself in fact, in flesh and blood with the people. But he needs them as part of the spectacle. So they'll be kept at a distance. Now imagine a public meeting. The greatness of that meeting will depend not so much on Modi as on the huge crowd milling around. And they'll be gathered from whichever source they can be. It's all a gathered up crowd. And the camera will, with predictable frequency, focus on the crowd, their reactions, etc. But imagine Narendra Modi standing in their midst and talking with them. There will be no magic. The whole thing will be gone. So much is, I suppose, sufficient to illustrate the fact that there is a problem, there is a democratic problem with the idea of Modi magic. Because democracy mandates that there be proximity between, regular communication between, and identification between the leader and the people. After all, it is government of the people, by the people, for the people. How can a democratic leader pride himself on his magic? Within the logic of democracy is a question, unfortunately, no intellectual in this country has asked the last 10 years, and I'm surprised. I'm absolutely surprised. That's why I'm addressing my thoughts to ordinary people, because now we are in a peculiar situation in which deeper ideas will be understood and accepted only by the common man, not by the intelligentsia of this country. They are all onto something else. I know what it is, but I don't want to pay any attention to it in this context. So this is the one aspect of the Modi magic. It is built on the logic of the spectacle. That's the irony of it. The spectacle has a logic. If you tamper with, if you disrupt the logic of the spectacle which sustains the magic, then the magic disappears. That magic is so brittle, so unsafe, so insecure. And if at all it persists only because it has the support, accidental or otherwise, of the logic of the spectacle. I hope that's clear. It is slightly complicated. It seems complicated not because it's really complicated, but because these ideas are not spoken of in the public domain. Now, if that is in Narendra Modi, what about Rahul Gandhi? I'm not going to say Sri Rahul Gandhi and all that, not because I don't respect him, but because he's much younger than me and I'm a citizen of this country. I believe that he should respect me as much as I should respect him. I should respect everyone and everybody should respect me. Why not? Why not? Okay, so we should abjure this slavish mentality by which millions are expected to fall down and worship a fellow human being merely to sort of create this illusion of that person's divine nature or status. So now, in contrast to this sustained, spectacle based magic of Modi, you have the emphasis on experience in the logic of Rahul. Experience. Therefore, it's not an accident that Rahul undertook the Bharat Jodo Yatra and the Nyaya Yatra, two yatras of great significance. What exactly is the significance, the symbolic, thematic, experiential significance of these two yatras? Because I don't know if Rahul understands it, and I'm not limited by what he understands, what he intends. As a third party, I have the freedom to interpret something as I understand it, because that's what is relevant. After all, in the democratic context, when somebody does something in the public domain, he cannot decide how the spectators should understand it. It's entirely up to them to make sense of whatever sense they can of it. So, the sense I make of the two yatras is that it implicitly rejects the logic of the spectacle and counterpoints it or opposes it with the logic of experience. Now, if I may put it very simply, the contrast here is the contrast between the theatre and life. Actors versus people. You understand? Controlled reality on the side and raw experience in flesh and blood, in all its truth, without any makeover, without any cosmetic touch. Here everything is cosmetic. Here it is experiential, truthful. Here it is creation and sustenance of an illusion. Here it is encountering the raw truth. Now, for God's sake, tell me, which is more powerful? Which is more powerful? See, because we are used to seeing the spectacle all the time, and that's largely because of the media age in which we are living, we are captivated and captured, as it were, and anchored in this spurious logic that the illusions generated, the spectacles generated in the theatre is the ultimate reality, is the most powerful reality. That's bogus, absolutely bogus. You will have that illusion only as long as the show lasts. Once the show is over, the whole thing evaporates like in a dream. Then you know that the whole massive experience was a mere sham. I'm now talking about the theatre. I'm not talking about what its counterpart in political life. So, as against that, Rahul's logic takes a completely different direction. Modi's magic demands that everybody comes to him. Everybody turns to him, but everybody stays at a distance. Look at the complete reversal of that pattern in Rahul's magic. He will go to the people. He will turn towards them. He will go into their midst. He will try to understand the realities that concern them. Now, that's a very significant reorientation. Now you tell me, which is more democratic, Modi's magic or Rahul's logic? Now, it's already 29 minutes. I've dealt with only one out of the 5 points of contrast that I wanted to share with you. Therefore, obviously, I have to do a second video, which I shall. I request you to be partners with me in making these insights reach as many people as possible. Our intention is only to spread a culture of thinking objectively, impartially, and rationally, which alone contributes to the welfare of the people of India. And no partisan interest of any kind is involved here, for God's sake. And let's do so. Let us do this work as an offering that would make to the God of truth, the God of justice, the God of love, the God of compassion, who does not recognize these labels of distinction and discrimination, and to whom every human being, no matter what that person's circumstance and station in life, belongs to the family of humanity. Thank you and see you soon.